Dr. Paris, I'm going to make you the host again. All right, you're good to go.
Thank you. Right, Brother Wade, we are live on YouTube.
All right. We don't have all of our panelists, do we?
No, we don't. We're going to start at 9.
All right. Is our White House representative, was he on the line or she on the line?
Maybe so. We'll acknowledge them at the end. Just ask for special guests.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. Good evening. How are you doing tonight?
I am doing great. Happy to see everyone.
Glad to see you. Glad to see you. Is all well?
Yes, definitely.
That's
We're
wonderful.
getting a lot of A lot of rain in Louisiana, but that's okay. We're still here.
I need the rain to be cleared up by February when the consortium goes to New Orleans.
Okay.
So I need you to make something happen.
Well, great. We will welcome you to the Crescent City.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, good evening, everyone. Good evening to all of you who have gathered tonight as we are in this part 2, if you will, of our COVID-19 critical conversations, if you would like to call it that, with college students. I'm very honored to be with you all tonight as your host. My name is Justin Wade. I am a senior religion and philosophy major. I also have the awesome privilege of serving as a 93rd Student Government Association president. I also have the privilege of being a brother of the Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated by way of the Gamma Mu chapter, where I serve as the chapter chaplain. And I am excited about what we will discuss and get into on this evening. As I survey the landscape of this Zoom call and Zoom session, I do want to quickly, as they say in the Baptist church, set the house in order to all of the advisors and to all of the teachers, faculty, and staff members who are here. We are so grateful and we so appreciate you all for extending to us your time tonight as we share in this conversation. To our live YouTube audience, we thank you for being able to get on YouTube as we are in this conversation that is critical and pertinent to all of our lives, as well as to all of the HBCUs and all of the colleges that are on this Zoom call. And we will definitely have a spirit session towards the end of our time together, as we did in our last conversation. And to all of the SGA presidents, all of the members of the consortium, I appreciate you all for supporting and for being with us on tonight, as well as to our White House representative who is on here. Certainly, we appreciate you being here with us on tonight. As they're over, and also I want to, before I move any further, I also want to highlight our Interfaith Youth Corps for bringing us all together to have these conversations as we discuss faith in the vaccine and higher education ambassadors, as we are discussing under the umbrella and framework of that reality that group exists. We are excited to be with you all. As you know, there are over 120 campuses and over 2,000 ambassadors engaged in this outreach opportunity sponsored by the Interfaith Youth Corps. Tonight, our programming features ambassadors from Livingstone College, LC, in Salisbury, North Carolina, Southern University A&M College in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Voorhees College in Denmark, South Carolina, and York College in Queens, New York. I had the privilege of spending some time with Southern and Voorhees in this past week. The student ambassadors are based on the community health worker model and are trained to engage people through their religious and ethnic communities. Ambassadors serve as messengers who offer a valuable touch point to the initiative. They provide a listening and sympathetic ear to understand concerns and relatable fact-based scientific information about the safety and effectiveness of the vaccine, with a values-centered inspiration about the importance of receiving it. Now, for those of you who are in the Zoom room, we ask that you please utilize the chat room so that you can connect and network with all of these brilliant minds and our panelists on this evening. I want to begin by introducing our panelists. My brother in Alpha, a good friend of mine, William McCorn, William E.B. McCorn. He is a senior sociology major here at Livingstone College. He's an experienced speaker, creator, and scholar with a passion for serving communities that have traditionally been silenced. In addition to being a Tom Joyner Hercules Scholar and a UNCF Education Reform Fellow, McCorn is a co-founder of the Family Griot Agency and an initiate of the Gamma Mu chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. William, would you please greet us on this evening?
Good evening, good people. I bring you greetings from Livingstone College beneath thy maples and thy oaks. I'm looking forward to having an opportunity to share an intelligent civil discourse with everyone tonight. Looking forward to hearing all of you all's responses as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Will. We appreciate you. Doraevia Douglas is a senior biology major and psychology minor at Southern University A&M College. She serves in a host of student and honor organizations and is active in the community. Most of all, she is a native of quaint Woodsville, Mississippi, where she will return after her matriculation at Morehouse School of Medicine. Doraevia, would you please greet us tonight?
Hello, everyone. It's so nice to see you all. I look forward to the conversations and discussions we will have tonight. And hello.
Thank you so much. Now, I want to say real quick as a little caveat, or not even caveat, but a disclaimer, if I mispronounce any name, please do not hesitate to correct me, and please charge it to my head and not my heart. Genesis Priester is a student at Voorhees College in Denmark, South Carolina. Ms. Priester is a senior hailing from Charleston, South Carolina, majoring in psychology, who this past semester devoted time and energy to studying the efforts of coronavirus on the Black community and its strain on emergency services. Ms. Priester lives by the quote, philosophy, knowledge is wealth, and wholeheartedly believes that by becoming more aware and helping to spread knowledge is essential in creating and sustaining wealth among Black Americans. In 2019, Ms. Priester received her mental health certification from Voorhees College and was recently inducted into the Alpha Kappa Mu Nu Honors Society. In her free time, she can be found reading, running, or posting on her page, The Black Perspective. Ms. Priester, would you please greet us?
Hello, everybody. Looking forward to the conversations tonight and gaining a new amount of knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. Michelle Williams of York College is a junior studying psychology. Michelle is a Percy E. Sutton SEEK, which stands for Search for Education, Elevation, and Knowledge Scholar, who loves to volunteer in food pantries and distribute nourishment throughout her community. As an aspiring physician, Michelle plans to be a healthcare provider for at-risk and historically marginalized communities. Michelle, would you please greet us?
Hi, good evening, everyone. It's very nice to meet you all today, and I'm so happy that we have the opportunity to discuss new information and help people get the vaccine and inspire people to remain healthy, and glad to be here.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Now our featured panelist for this evening. The reason why he is featured is because in his bio, there are words that we had to practice to pronounce because he is that important. He is that well educated and experienced. His name is Kareem Altador of Tampa, Florida. Ms. Altador is a clinical research coordinator and a member of the Moffitt Immune Cell Therapy team that focuses on cellular immune therapies as a chimeric antigen receptor T-cell therapy, CRAT, which re-engineers a patient's own immune cells to fight cancer. Kareem initially began his career interest in clinical and public health as a United States Peace Corps volunteer and later as an epidemiologist in infectious disease. Kareem Altador is a proud HBCU alumnus of both the Livingstone College and Claflin University. As a researcher and experienced clinical worker, Mr. Altador will delve into the ins and outs of the COVID-19 vaccination and the ways in which the human anatomy is taking on this virus. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, if you would please clap in the comment section and use the clap emoji on the Zoom screen, I present to you Kareem Altador.
Thank you, Justin, for your very kind introduction and your remarks regarding the overall program. I would like to also thank the Interfaith Corps, Youth Corps, Livingstone College, Southern University, Voorhees College, and York College for this wonderful opportunity. So I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to start the presentation. Can you guys see it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I didn't want to be too scientific with the presentation because I didn't know everyone's educational background. So I minimized some of the technical aspects of the presentation, specifically as it pertains to like immunological notations and words that normal scientists speak every single day, and just try to make it more basic and rudimentary so everyone can kind of be on the same page. Hold on. So the title of the presentation is the Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome Coronavirus 2, known as SARS-CoV-2. The objective of this presentation in terms of takeaway messages is I want the audience to try to grasp an understanding in terms of how the immune system functions on a day-to-day basis when it encounters external forces that are adverse towards the body. Also understand what SARS-CoV-2 is and its effect on the immune system, and also the current mitigation strategies that our particular country is doing to make sure, for the most part, people are vaccinated. There's an epidemiological control of the virus so that we can actually get it to a controllable rate so we don't have to spread the virus around. I've broken the presentation up into 3 components, where the first part will be just conversations about immunological basic understanding. The second component will be about COVID-2, SARS-CoV-19 and its background, in addition to the classification of the virus, structure and function of the virus, and the replication process. And part 3 will be about the mitigation strategies for SARS-CoV-2, COVID-19, and the sociopolitical aspect of the virus in terms of what it has on the general population. So we'll delve into part 1 of the immune system. And again, this is just on a real basic elementary level. So I didn't want anyone to be intimidated if they had if they don't have a scientific background. So some key words and key phrases that I want everyone to kind of understand, because we constantly hear this in the news, often at times, where you hear antibodies, antigen. So just to make sure like we're all on the same page, antigens, they're proteins in nature, which the body recognizes as foreign and produces immune responses. Antibodies, on the other hand, are proteins in nature and are produced in response to antigens. So immunological basis, the immune system is just a collection of mechanisms within an individual that protects against foreign adversaries that are external towards the body, such as killing pathogens and tumor cells. There are 4 main functions in terms of what the immune system does. That is immunological recognition, where in which it detects the presence of an infection. It has immune effector function also as well, where infection is limited to a certain area after it's been detected so that the appropriate response is counter-mounted. Then you have immune regulation, where the immune response must be kept under control so that it doesn't damage the rest of the body. And then you have immunological memory, which is once the individual becomes exposed to a certain particular viral infection, the person will make antibodies that will thus protect it against any subsequent exposure to that agent and providing protective immunity against it. So in terms of why I describe immunology and why it's important in understanding COVID-19, we would just want to make sure that we understand exactly how the body responds to certain things that are external, but also have a grasp and understanding related to just the normal day basis of our scientific and public health infrastructure, whether it's safe organ transplantation and how the immune system responds, blood group identification, monoclonal antibodies, which are used in vaccinations, in addition to vaccine development and clinical and commercial applications. So many of us who are scientific are within the scientific community, I should say, know that there are 2 types of immune responses. One is the innate immune response, which is the basic resistant to a disease that an individual possesses. That's nonspecific. With regards to that, the response to antigen is independent because it naturally is possessed by the individual. There's an immediate maximal response where an antigen enters the body and non-antigen specific. So exposure results in immunological memory. Adaptive, on the other hand, is the production of antibodies against a particular pathogen or its product. Sorry. Hold on. Hold on for a second. Oh.
Hey, Kobe. Appreciate it. The mama say. What you say? Mama needs something.
In terms of the cells that are usually formed as a result of the immune response, whenever it encounters a infectious disease, that is usually the macrophages, which are the primary white blood cells, natural killer T cells also as well.
And when it first, that'll give me, so I just need five
Hello?
bottles.
If you could please mute your mic for our speaker right now, thank you so very much.
Okay, I'll continue. So yeah, as I stated before, in terms of the innate immunity, in terms of its rapid response, whenever it encounters a viral infection, you have the macrophages, which act as defense mechanism where in which it engulfs the viral infection itself. You have the natural killer T cells also as well, the dendritic cells, neutrophil, eosinophils, basophils, and then you also have the adaptive immune, which is a slow response, which activates the B cells, but also produces the antibodies in addition to the T cells, and that does produce the CD4 and CD8 T cells, which attaches to the major histocompatibility receptors. From there, you have a breakdown of that, where you have the common myeloid progenitors, which are just, again, macrophages, granulocytes, mast cells. And this particular schematic itself on the screen is broken up into two components, where you have on the left side, the innate immune response, in addition to the right side, which has the adaptive immune response. So on the left side, the common myeloid progenitor immune cells are the macrophages, the mast cells, the dendritic cells, and the red blood cells. And those are just your normal soldiers in defense whenever the immune system encounters a particular viral infection. Macrophages itself, which is at the bottom of the schematic between the innate response and the adaptive immune response, resides in a tissue where it migrates to the bloodstream and are called monocytes. So the macrophages, as I stated before, engulfs and kills those invading microorganisms known as a process called phagocytosis. Then you have your natural killer T cells. So with the natural killer T cells, they play a major role in the rejection of tumor cells and infected by a virus. The natural killer cells do not express TCR cells. Natural killer cells are known to differentiate into mature bone marrow, which we use quite often, where they then enter the circulation of the blood. The natural killer T cells differ from the natural killer, where they enter into the circulation, natural killer cells differ from the natural killer T cells phenotypically by origin and by respective effector of the function. So often the natural killer T cells activity promote natural killer cells activity by secreting interferon gamma. So immediately when your body encounters a foreign adversary, what it does is actually call for these particular soldiers, which again are the macrophages, the granulocytes, the eosinophils, the neutrophils, the mast cells, the dendritic cells, to come up to respond to the appropriate viral infection to see if it actually encountered it before, and then try to develop a response appropriate enough for that particular attack itself. Just to give like a small little summary of the immune system itself, as I stated before, the immune cells has leukocytes, which are the white blood cells, the plasma cells make and secrete antibodies, the macrophages itself engulf invading particles or adversaries. The mast cells trigger inflammatory response. And from there, you have the leukocytes that breaks down further into the neutrophil, the basophils, the eosinophils, and monocytes. So in essence, what I'm trying to describe here is that your immune system has an appropriate response mounted for whenever it encounters a viral or an external agent that it does not recognize to the body in itself. Part 2, this is SARS-CoV-2 background. For many of us, we have a understanding of it based off what we've been seeing reported on the news, but I just want to clear up some misconception in terms of SARS-CoV-2 versus COVID-19. So the virus, severe acute respiratory syndrome, coronavirus 2, SARS-CoV-2 is the virus. Disease is coronavirus disease of 2019 caused by SARS-CoV-2. For some people, that really doesn't make any sense in terms of its classification. And the reason I had to break that down was because I had a lot of people come up to me and ask me, well, what does it matter in terms of the interchangeability in terms of you using the words between SARS-CoV-2 and COVID-19? And I always remind people that why do the virus and the disease have different names? Viruses and the disease they cause often have different names. For example, HIV is the virus that causes AIDS. So we just want to make sure we kind of have a complete fluid understanding of what the virus is and what the disease is, which are totally two different things. This is background information in terms of the classification of the severe acute respiratory syndrome or SARS-CoV-2. The genus of the coronavirus, it's a crown-like structure with a positive single-stranded RNA virus in terms of its replication. It is not double helix or anything like that, similar to what we have. In terms of its length, it's about 20 to 32 kilobase pairs. In terms of diameter, it's 65 to 125 nanometers. So it's extremely small. In terms of the virus itself, in terms of the family, it's within the Coronaviridae family, and the subfamily is the Coronavirinae family itself. And then there are subgroups known as the alpha coronavirus, the beta coronavirus, the gamma coronavirus, in addition to the delta coronavirus. So far, the ones that we've encountered have been within the alpha and beta. The delta is the new strain that we're experiencing at the present moment. In terms of what the subgroup indicates is essentially the mutation rate of the virus itself. So it initially starts out with an alpha, then as the virus becomes more complex and it starts to develop and use the host immune system to replicate and evade the immune system, it develops further and further, starting to get more advanced. And you then have subsequent other different forms of the virus itself. In terms of the structure itself, it's a spike protein, envelope positive single-stranded RNA virus with helical capsid, several glycoproteins embedded in the envelope where you have the M protein, the E protein, the spike protein, genome wrapped in the inside, which is this interior version of it. And polymerase is not a prepackaged in viral particles that need to be made at the beginning of the replication cycle. So in terms of the structure itself, the reason it's spiked is usually it attaches to our particular cells to kind of replicate and become more advanced. And from there, after it's used our system to kind of replicate itself, it starts to kind of spread out and metastasize, just like any normal virus. The spikes itself is almost similar to a key in a lock. The virus will attach itself to a host cell, sit there for quite a few days or whatever amount of duration of time that's necessary for it to learn. And from there, once it has the key necessary to enter into the door, it immediately goes in and starts to evade the normal immune system, where those normal responses that I stated before earlier in the presentation, where you have the macrophages, the granulocytes, and so many other, don't even recognize it. In terms of classification of COVID-19, you have the alpha, the beta COVID-19, And this is just a phylogenetic or classification of the virus itself, where you have the order, the family, the subfamily, the genus, where you have the alpha, as I stated before, the beta COVID virus, in addition to the gamma and the delta. And then there are certain species that produces or grow their own form of COVID-19. So an alpha and beta COVID infect only mammals, equal gastroenteritis and illness in humans. And then you have the delta COVID, which infects birds and mammals. In terms of the replication cycle itself, as I said before, the coronavirus binds to a particular receptor cell, trying to learn and gauge exactly how it will replicate in terms of continuing on its cellular process. Once it actually enters into the body or that host cell, it releases its viral genome. Then it starts to use the cell or the host cell replication process for viral polymerase proteins. So in our particular case, for those who have a scientific background, many of us are familiar with the central dogma of replication, which is DNA to RNA, RNA to protein. Because this is an RNA based virus, it uses the reverse process known as reverse transcriptase. The RNA replication itself is hijacked. From there, there's subgenomic transcription that occur. Again, this is just a part of the replication process. After that, translation of the virus is kind of done in the endoplasmic reticulum. Then from there, the S and M proteins combine with the nucleocapsid just to try to build itself back up again. And the formation of a mature virus is developed. After that, then it exits that particular host cell once it's used its replication cycle through a process known as exocytosis, thus bursting and making more progenies of the cell or the virus itself to do the same thing all over again. Part 3, this is the SARS-CoV-2 mitigation strategies. And the reason I want to go into this particular point a little bit much further rather than somewhat stay into the science is because we all know the mitigation strategies that we've been told through Dr. Fauci and so many others, such as washing our hands, making sure that we stick to COVID-19 restrictions with regards to, 6 feet distance and so many other things that we're supposed to adhere to make sure that we quarantine the virus itself and make sure we reach a level of epidemiological control. So before we get into that, I would like to further kind of go into the different forms of vaccines, because the common thing that many people are getting confused about is what a vaccine is, and specifically its classification and whether or not, or well, I shouldn't say whether or not, but many people are kind of hesitant in terms of getting the vaccine and if they should get it, because this is a new vaccine we've never heard of and it was developed so fast. So just to try to make sure like we have some ground understanding, I want to kind of just talk about exactly the vaccines that we currently have within the market itself. So number one, the inactivated vaccine, which currently use is the hepatitis A vaccine. Many of us get that already. The polio vaccine, which is a shot only, the rabies. For this particular vaccine, it's used to kill the version of the germ cell that causes a disease. And what it does is actually induces the immune response necessary for your body to recognize it, but not become sick as a result of it. Then you have the live attenuated virus, which is the weakened form of a germ, kind of similar to the inactivated to some extent, the germ that causes the disease. For this, we have many of the vaccines that are live attenuated that we constantly get within our normal immunological vaccinations, which is the measles, mumps, and rubella, the rotavirus, the smallpox, the chickenpox, the yellow fever. The next one I'll go into is the mRNA virus, which is something that we've quite heard frequently used in the news with regards to COVID-19 and its development. This is just messenger RNA. The reason that this particular vaccine was used to make COVID-19 was because of the mere fact the technology we've already had in terms of the background information. Outside of that, we use this in all of our other scientific infrastructure, whether that's stem cell research or for that matter, bone marrow therapy and so many other things that we use. This was much more of a sure thing, and it's much quicker as opposed to the other viruses, or not the viruses, but the other vaccines that we develop in terms of its manufacturing process. So that's why we use an mRNA-based vaccine. Also, as well, it's more familiar in terms of our body recognizing it and actually going to do in terms of what it's supposed to do. Number 4 is the viral vaccine, and then you have taxoid vaccine. Then after that, you have the subunit recombinant polysaccharide and conjugate vaccines. So for for this particular vaccine, they use specific pieces of the germ, sugar proteins causing or casing around the germ. Vaccines are not long lasting for this particular vaccine usage, but the ones that are usually hepatitis B, which are usually around 1 or 2 doses that you get, the HPV, in addition to the shingles. So these are the subunits, recombinant polysaccharide and conjugate-based vaccines. So as a review, we have inactivated vaccines, live attenuated vaccines, mRNA vaccines, in addition to the subunit recombinant polysaccharide and conjugate vaccines that are currently out in the marketplace that we've gotten for almost 20 years and that we're quite familiar with. In terms of the emergency approval with regards to the vaccine that the United States has kind of developed, even though this list is kind of short, it kind of gets you a breakdown in terms of the vaccine brand, in addition to who can get the vaccine with regards to their age, how many shots will be needed, when are you fully vaccinated. So for the Pfizer BioNTech, the age limit is usually 12 years and older. How many shots you will need are 2 shots given within a 3-week time period. Are you fully vaccinated? 2 weeks after your second shot, you're fully vaccinated. From there, you have the Mrna vaccine. Who can get the shot? People 18 years and older. How many shots will you need? Usually just 2 shots for this particular one, and it's given within a 4-week time period apart from one another. When you are fully vaccinated, 2 weeks after your second shot, you retain a level of immunological memory or immunity. Then you have the vaccine brand name itself, Johnson & Johnson. Janssen, in this case, is the manufacturer. Who can get this vaccine? People 18 years and older. How many shots will you need? Just 1 shot for this one. When are you fully vaccinated? Again, 2 weeks after your shot. So for this one, I just want to go into detail in terms of the current emergency vaccines that we currently have out there in the market, in addition to classification of the vaccines itself that we currently get, going back to this particular page. So there shouldn't be any vaccine hesitation. If they are, and if you do encounter them, just kind of educate people in terms of letting them know that we currently have mRNA-based vaccines, live attenuated, in addition to other subunit recombinant polysaccharide and conjugate-based vaccines also as well. For this one, I just want to go over strike team emergency preparedness, because this is something that we're constantly hearing now all of a sudden, because I think the president had a deadline, I think July 4th, where he wanted to reach a rate of epidemiological control to make sure that the virus is contained and that it won't spread. For many of us who actually work in civil society or in the health field itself, we know for the most part, strike teams are the bread and butter in terms of quarantining a particular viral infection, making sure that for the most part, mitigation strategies are constantly used, and there's a quite fluid but also succinct level of communication going out to the public to make sure that they're educated, but also use the best deliberate choices as possible to mitigate any form of spread, even if they happen to not be vaccinated for the vaccine itself. I took pictures of the Ebola virus in terms of our response there from a military standpoint with regards to developing a strike team. I actually exercised that during my Peace Corps experience when it came to addressing HIV and AIDS underneath the PEPFAR initiative, which is the President's Emergency Plan Relief Act. And I used something contemporaneously in terms of what many of us have watched in the past. If you were a big Parks and Rec watcher, you remember that Leslie Note, she was, I think, a county commissioner or some city alderman. But long story short, she did emergency preparedness, and it wasn't just her within civil society doing it, but it was also a full civil society team itself addressing those issues. So even if you do hear the issue that comes up with regards to strike team, you assume that it's a clinician going to your house and door, forcing you or coercing you to get vaccinated. That's not their job. To coerce you to do anything you don't want to do. If you don't feel comfortable doing it, of course you don't have to. But I just want to emphasize that that we do have strike teams in place, and this should be kind of familiar and cemented with regards to our health infrastructure. As to why it wasn't used in the current president's predecessor is quite baffling to me, but nonetheless, the current president is using it, which I really encourage him and applaud him for his effort. And I also had the picture specifically of the children underneath the desk. And this was during World War II when they were, exercising emergency preparedness with regards to, if a potential strike happens to the U.S., what is the particular or appropriate response to addressing a particular issue related to that particular emergency? So I'm just trying to emphasize in conclusion or in total, is that emergency preparedness is a part of our health infrastructure. It's always been, despite what you see on the news and how it's been sensationalized. It is bread and butter, a part of our communities. It's at every health department, whether it's a rural health department or an urban one like New York City. Just to bring you back into focus a little bit much more to see the severity of the situation. This is a vaccine dose graph that shows just by breakdown of countries, how many of the countries have received the vaccine, in addition to the rate at which they're reaching a level of epidemiological control. Initially, when this first began, the US was actually lagging behind many industrialized countries, let alone developing countries also as well. Now the US is kind of fifth or fourth in place after Germany, but the rates are still going high as a result of the Delta virus itself, or Delta variant, I should say. So if you know anyone who isn't vaccinated, just make sure you are vaccinated and you educate them in terms of getting vaccinated also as well, because it's very important to reaching a level of epidemiological control for us to return back to a place of normality, which is very important. In terms of references, these are my references in terms of me, using and gathering background information related to the pathophysiology, the treatment, and the strategies effective to treat, contain, in addition to educate people about getting the vaccine.
Thank you so much, Mr. Altador, for your wonderful presentation tonight. Can we give Mr. Altador a round of applause in our Zoom room? If you would please just give a little clap emoji or comment in the comment section. We appreciate this type of information. It is very critical and very important that we have this type of information being shared. I, like you, would take pictures of the screen because in a world where we have so much false and fake and fickle information concerning COVID-19, it's good that our HBCUs are producing men like Mr. Altador who are able to reason and ration and determine and decipher through data and sound information concerning these issues that are very pressing. And so we want to thank him so much for taking the time, taking the time to share with us this important information. So again, we say thank you. Now we are going to move very swiftly tonight to the part of our program where we will have commentary. Yes, we will have questions that our panelists will ask and our presenter on this evening, and they will discuss in detail the application of the information that has been shared with us on tonight as it pertains to our respective HBCUs, where we are all located across the length and breadth of this nation. After these questions, we will entertain some, not all, but we will definitely have some questions from you all. Those of you who are in our Zoom room on this evening will have the privilege and will have the responsibility, if you so desire, of sending questions in our chat room that we can ask our presenter on this evening. Our first question will come from my good brother, William McCorn of Livingstone College. Will, are you there, bro? All right, well, we're going to move right along. Hopefully, will come back to us. We'll now move right along to Doraevia Douglas from Southern University A&M College in Baton Rouge.
Yes, hello. Thank you, Justin. And thank you, Kareem, for such an informative and detailed presentation. You definitely cleared up a lot of questions that I personally had with the vaccine and with the virus as well. So like you mentioned, the new strain that we have with COVID-19 is the Delta variant, and it's causing a lot of new panic and fear amidst the population. So my question would be, would the body be able to defend against viral mutations, such as a Delta variant or even the Gamma, if it were to arise, if the individual is already vaccinated?
Well, the body should have some level of immunological memory, as I stated before in the presentation. You have antibodies. I think the present issue that many virologists and additional scientists are still unaware about is how long that immunity kind of lasts. Although there is a consensus that there is a, sorry. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm so sorry. Could you ask the question again? My apologies.
Yes, the question was, would the body be able to defend against the different viral mutations if the individual is already vaccinated?
Yes, so as I was stating before earlier, so if you've been vaccinated, your body should have some level of immunological memory where it retains for a certain period of time. I think at the present moment, although there's a consensus in terms of the efficacious rate of the virus, or not the virus, but the vaccine itself, having 90 to 95% accuracy, we just don't know at the present moment how long that is going to last, because even now, within the news, there's talk about getting or receiving a booster shot, but also bringing in young people to get vaccinated also, as well as one of their first immunization shots to kind of return back to a place of normalcy for many of them who want to attend public school or in-school settings. But at the present moment, there is a consensus that there should be, like in terms of the variant itself, that your immune system should be strong enough to kind of fight it off.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you, Doraevia, for asking that thought-provoking question. Will, Will let us know that his audio is not working. Will, you can type your question if you have one or a comment. And while you are typing, we're going to move to Genesis Priest Voorhees.
Good evening. In understanding how the virus interacts with the immune system and how it can affect the person once they are infected, why was it so easy to develop this vaccine versus others?
So initially, when the vaccine occurred, despite what you saw on the news, um, when the vaccine, or not the vaccine, but when the virus first happened, there was a unwillingness with regards to our leader to not put an international effort with our allies, in addition to our adversaries, to kind of come together. But there is an international vaccine community that has experience with working with viruses, and specifically this one also as well. So this isn't our first time experiencing SARS-CoV virus. There was the H1N1 that occurred, I think, in early 2003, 2012. It lasted until, in addition to another form of the virus itself that developed within the Middle East. So it wasn't our first time encountering that. So because we have that prior knowledge, we were able to develop a vaccine quite readily, especially now considering the amount of tools that we have at our disposal with regards to technology and the advancement that we have. So in terms of synthesizing, looking at it from a genomic standpoint, getting all of our health infrastructure, even in addition to my health infrastructure in particular, because I work at a cancer hospital, we kind of leveraged the entire scientific infrastructure in the United States and the geopolitical community also as well to develop a vaccine.
I would like to add to that. I saw actually a video clip with Dr. Kismika Corbett. I believe she's the woman, the African American woman who they're kind of attributing to implementing the COVID vaccination. She actually said that no, it's not a new vaccination. Exactly what Kareem Altador is saying. It's not something that's actually new, because we had SARS, H1N1, all of these things. I'm not really certain if this audience is pretty much old enough to remember this, but I do remember while I was employed at Livingstone, maybe around 2006, 2007, as it relates to the athletes. There was a SARS outbreak pretty much amongst the football team. There was actually a deadly case at Elizabeth City State University. So I do recall that. But as she stated then, she let it be known that this is not the coronavirus had already pretty much been in existence through those other viruses. And so therefore they had been working on it all along. So when it reappeared, they were already able to have something for that.
That's correct, Dr. Barish.
Okay, thank you. Will, we appreciate you for being on here, and we understand that sometimes technology does not always work to our liking, but we always know to move around it. Will McCoy, Mr. Altador, has a question, and it says, how long do you predict it will be until we can expect the world to return to some sense of normalcy?
Well, the thing is that I think this is the new normal for the most part. I think the world should now start to become more prepared in terms of encountering emergent viruses, in addition to infectious disease. And our response needs to be very rapid and robust, but also there needs to be a general consensus in terms of what the United States is doing and being transparent, in addition to what China is doing also as well, and other international partners and allies that we have abroad.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Someone has, I believe, Miss Deidre Mackey. She would like to piggyback off of Miss Douglas's question. Miss Mackey, yes?
Yes, this is correct. Thank you, President Wade, for the floor. I guess my question is, it's my understanding that a vaccinated individual can still, let's say, encounter some of the virons of the virus itself. and perhaps still spread it to an unvaccinated person. Is that accurate? I'm sure that, of course, this would be more of a fatal result for the unvaccinated person. However, the individual who is vaccinated may still experience some mild symptoms as such, as opposed to, let's say, needing a ventilator and going into the hospital. Is that accurate?
That is accurate. In terms of the symptoms that you're describing, many of the scientists I've been researching have stated or kind of dubbed it as the long haul syndrome, where in which they retain these lingering effects of the viral infection, although they may not retain the severity of it to the extent to where they need a respirator or anything like that. But it's interesting because I think many scientists, and specifically physicians, don't know how to quite respond to the situation, because initially when people reported it, they made it seem as if it was an isolated issue. But then you started hearing other stories also as well, where people say they were experiencing the same thing also. So it's very interesting. But in terms of someone actually being vaccinated, in terms of addressing that particular question, and then having the COVID vaccine and possibly a carrier of the virus itself and passing it on to a person who hasn't been vaccinated, that is very much true also as well. And that's no different from the current level of vaccination transmission that we currently have. There are people within our society now, prior to COVID-19, who can't retain any form of immunity. There's nothing wrong with them. They just can't retain an immunity. I've encountered that before when I worked at the health department as an epidemiologist, where I vaccinated people with hepatitis B vaccine, only to kind of find out I have to keep vaccinating that person again and again. And it's really unfortunate because, I mean, you can run all series of tests, there's nothing wrong with them, but for some particular reason, that particular virus attenuated or weakened virus itself, the body doesn't quite recognize in terms of retaining the level of immunological memory needed for it to encounter something to build a level of infrastructure that, let's say, for instance, if they do encounter hepatitis B, at least the body can recognize it.
Okay, thank you.
No
The
problem.
last question from our panelists will be from Michelle Williams of York College.
Hi, good evening. So one of my questions would be, since they're thinking about making a booster vaccine, what do you think are some precautions for vaccinated individuals against the Delta variant?
Ask the question again. I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand it.
Okay. So a person, for example, if they're vaccinated, right? If they have taken the Johnson & Johnson, Moderna, or Pfizer, and what do you think the precautions would be for a person who's vaccinated and may get the Delta variant?
Sorry, I'm thinking.
No, it's okay.
So you want to know specifically if someone who has been vaccinated is ready to get the booster shot, and there's a potential in terms of if they've gotten the variant of the virus, should they get the booster or not?
I'm asking about the precautions a person who is vaccinated would have to take in regards to the Delta variant. So like if they get the Delta variant, what are some of the precautions they would have to keep in mind?
I would think the same level of precaution, even if you're not vaccinated or if you are vaccinated, for the most part, quarantining yourself if you feel like you're sick. I would say regular consultation with your physician, in addition to safety precautions in terms of protecting your family also as well. I don't know if that quite answers the question.
Yeah, that answers it. And also another question I would have, because I'm curious, so the booster vaccine, right, it would be much similar to the Delta variant, the one that's out in the United States now?
Yes, there are manufacturers that for the most part already had a prediction that there will be a mutation of the vaccine or the virus itself and had already developed the Delta vaccine variant or virus. Sorry, I keep using those words interchangeably. I don't know why.
It's all good.
Thank you so much, panelists, for your questions. And now we will take three questions from our audience here in our Zoom room. You can ask by utilizing the chat room if there are any questions, and we will read them to Mr. Altador. But if not, we are going to move right along throughout the rest of the evening. So, are there any questions? We'll give you all some time. All right. Well, it looks like we don't have any questions from the audience, which is a good thing because what it means is that everything was answered in the presentations. And so we want to again thank Mr. Altador for giving us this presentation. Can we give Mr. Altador, show him some love, show him some appreciation. Can we give it up for our panelists who are on here this evening, who asked some brilliant questions and engaged in awesome dialogue and representing their institution. Now we get to one of the relaxed portions of our session. But before we get there, I'm going to do a little out of order because that for me is one of the fun parts of being here on the Zoom. I want to acknowledge our special guest. First, I want to acknowledge again all of the SGA presidents who are on the line tonight. If we could just give it up for them, all of our SGA presidents. I see President Walker, see President D'Angelo, I see President Jatia, President Tolbert, who are here. And if I'm forgetting anyone, please let me know, and I'm sure that they will in our group chat. We've got the president, Garen is president, SGA president at Fort Valley. Lauren Tolbert, text me again the name of your institution, Tolbert. I want to make sure I get it right. And I want to make sure that's all who I have on here tonight. Claflin University, that's it, Claflin. So Kareem, you've got two SGA presidents from both of your institutions who are on here. So I think it's safe to say that we're trying our best to hold up the mantle for you. We also want to give a shout out to all of our coaches who are on here. Deidre James Mackey of Southern University. I met with the SGA president from Southern this past week at NASAP. And we also want to lift up Dr. Tawana Chenault of Hembry, Dr. Chenault Hembry, of Voorhees College. We thank you for being on here. And we also want to take time to extend to you our deepest thoughts and prayers and sympathy as you and your family are going through a season of bereavement and grieving. We want to lift you up in our thoughts and our prayers. Also, Jean Phelps and Sheila Beverly Skinner of York College. Last time I mispronounced your name, but this time I got it right. I got it right this time. So we appreciate you all for being on here. And if there are any other special guests, whose name I did not call, again, charge it to my head, not my heart, but to all of you who are here with us on this evening. But if there are any other special guests, any visiting members of any institution who would like to give us greetings on this evening, the floor is open to you for that.
Good evening once again. This is Eric Pugh, representing Southern University with my crew. Just want to make sure I said hello to everyone. And I see one of my favorite girls, Dr. Parrish from Livingstone College. Want to say hello. Give a shout out to Livingstone College. And also all my other family from Southern University.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Mr. Pugh. I just saw, Ms. Mackey, I just saw your comment. There was a question, I may have missed it. There was a hand up. I didn't see it. But to that individual who had a question, please ask it.
Yes, I did, from Southern University, Baton Rouge, Kevin James. To our presenter, if he's still on, I wanted to ask with reference to the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. I understand there's some type of, and forgive me if I'm mispronouncing it, Guillain-Barré issue that's going on with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. To what degree is the Johnson & Johnson vaccine still being used now, in that it's a one-shot vaccine? Is it still accepted by the community, or what is the percentage of use now that it's having some problems, it seems? Can you elaborate on that?
Sorry, yes. So it appears, because it's on emergency use, certain states, rather than destroying it, are using it because of the efficacious rate of the vaccine. Many states are not using them. It was mostly, I know for my state in particular, Florida, which is not a bellwether state in terms of certain things, actually sent the vaccines back to the government as a trade-off to receive more Moderna-based vaccine. There has been a lot of associated issues with that particular vaccine. And although they fixed it, I think the lingering effect that it had on the population, or the populace in particular, is quite long lasting. So many people are still skeptical about receiving it, despite the updates and changes that Johnson & Johnson and Janssen, the manufacturer, helped to modify to make sure that it was accurate and that it did not have any form of deleterious effect on the people receiving the vaccine. Does that answer the question?
Yes. So it's just being used for emergency use now.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Brother Wade, let me add on to the question Attorney James just mentioned about Johnson & Johnson. I heard on the news that they're trying to discourage people from mixing vaccines, especially with the booster shot. Can you elaborate on the mixture of drugs, especially for the individuals who had the Johnson & Johnson shot?
Yes, I can actually. Just from a scientific base or standpoint, some of the vaccines can't be mixed because of the mere fact it will lose its effectiveness. I can think back to when I was younger, for instance. I think, what was it? The hepatitis B, in addition to the DTaP, and some other vaccines were not mixed together. And it took actually 20 or 15 years later for it now to be offered as a fully vaccinated, or not vaccinated, but a fully functioning vaccine where it's called, I think, Twinrix, where it's the hepatitis B vaccine combined with something else, the DTaP also as well. And previously, before that wasn't the case. Usually things like that takes a slow process over time, because you want to make sure that you're testing the effectiveness of the vaccine. So, I mean, to me, it makes a lot of sense.
Okay, thank you for your response.
I want to acknowledge this. I want to acknowledge this comment from Sister Mackey. She says also there was an extremely small population that exhibited the Guillain-Barré syndrome after the J&J vaccination. So we acknowledge that, and we thank you for contributing to that. If there are no more questions, we want to move into the spirit session of this Zoom call. This is where things get fun and entertaining. We want to shout out all of the colleges that have been represented on tonight. So we want to give a shout out to the supporters of Michelle Williams and York College. Let's see your school spirit. York College, let me see you. all of York. All right.
Can they unmute?
Yeah, go ahead on unmute and
Go York!
Yeah.
York College!
York College! York rocks! Wonderful program. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, that was York. All right, those who were here with Genesis Priester and Voorhees College. Let me see you, Voorhees. Voorhees, let me hear you. All right, I see some things in the comments.
Voorhees.
Yeah, okay. All right. That's it. That's good. All right. Those who were here with Doraevia Douglas from Southern University and A&M College of Baton Rouge. Come on, let me hear you. All right. All of those were cute presentations. We thank God for all of y'all. And, it's good to have Voorhees College. Voorhees is nice. You have a nice program over there. It's good that we've got York College. York, we appreciate you. Southern University, it's awesome that you all are here. But there can only be one school that rocks the blue and the black. There can only be, Miss Jean, there can only be but one school that can be blue and a bear at the same time. There's only one school, Miss Mack, only one school that was founded in Salisbury, North Carolina in 1879. Right. There's only one school that was Zion Wesley Institute, and it got moved. Come on, to Salisbury after the building was burnt down. We got that grant, huh?
Give them the history, Doc. Give them the history, Doc.
There's only one school that can claim that. So I wanna shout out the illustrious Livingstone College. Come on, Livingstone. Let me see you.
Come on, preacher. Come on, preacher.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Live in effect. You know what I'm saying?
You're here. We're here. And we're excited about it, So we thank God for all of you who are here, But there's only one. And we want to shout out all of the Greeks who are on here, the AKAs and the Deltas and the Sigmas and the Zetas and the Iotas and the Kappas and the Omegas. But we definitely have to highlight the members of the Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. We want to
1906.
That's it.
And down, Mr. Pugh.
Mr. Pugh knows where the good brothers are. We're men of distinction.
On the Harlemar. Harlemar, Mr.
Pugh. We appreciate you all. We appreciate you all for being here with us on tonight. It has been my honor. It's been my privilege to be able to host you all. Oh wait, I'm sorry. We have a hand up. Someone has a hand up. Miss Mackey caught it. Whose hand is up?
Melvin Emery.
Melvin, are you here? Melvin?
No, I did that by mistake, but no, I didn't have it up on purpose.
Okay, we appreciate you, Melvin. We appreciate you. Ms. Mackey would make sure you got included. So we appreciate you. But we appreciate all of you for being on. Again, I'm Justin Wade. It's been my honor to be able to share with you all as your host. It is my hope, and it is the hope of all of us here at Livingstone College, that we were able to present you all with some sound and solid information tonight that you can take back to your campuses, and that you can take back to those who who need to get this vaccine in our communities. Thank you so very much. I appreciate that. Until I see you all again, thank you so much and good evening.
And thank you.
Good evening. Thank you, Dr. Parrish.
Good evening.
Good evening.